Well, hi there, Heike Yates here, and welcome back to another episode of the Pursue Your Spark podcast. Before we dive into today's really powerful episode with my friend Tracy, I have some really exciting news to share with you guys. The 5 for 50 Lifestyle Strategy Guide for Women Over 50 is ready for you. In this comprehensive guide, I show you how you kickstart or tune up your fitness journey, which means I show you steps that help you discover more about your needs so that you know exactly what to do, which means less hassle to get started, and how to stop feeling overwhelmed by showing you steps to reduce stress so that you're setting the priorities that matter. Plus, how to plan exercises into your day so that you feel strong and healthy, which means you don't have to stress about making time for exercise. I show you how to create easy and nutritious meals so that you don't have to guess what and how to create a healthy meal, which means that you will eat less junk. And finally, how to boost your self-confidence so that you step out of your comfort zone, which means that you will learn to grow your skills to succeed in the goals that you set for yourself. I will put a link in the show notes for this brand new free guide for you, the 5 for 50 Lifestyle Guide. And now on to today's interview with Tracy Hickman. Hi there, you're listening to the Pursue Your Spark podcast. I'm your host and fitness warrior, Heike Yates. And on this show, we empower women over 50 to take back their health and strength with sound fitness, nutrition, and mindset strategies. Our guests on the show share their honest stories so that you'll have the courage to take action, knowing that you're not alone in your struggles. Today's guest is Tracy Hickman, an endurance athlete and long-distance runner that raced marathons, including the marathon on Antarctica and on all 7 continents. And she completed the Marathon des Sables, a 250-kilometer foot race in the Sahara. When she's not racing, Tracy works as a business advisor, helping clients with governance, strategy, and financial modeling. Tracy was diagnosed with breast cancer in March of 2019 and continued to run races during her treatment. Today we're talking about how exercise through chemotherapy helped Tracy not only run the Chicago Marathon, but she says that running made her feel normal through all of her treatments for cancer. Tracy and I met at the marathon in the Antarctica.
That's right. Gosh, what an amazing time it was.
Unbelievable. Was this your 7th continent, the Antarctica?
It was. So yes, I got my 7 continents medal as well as the Antarctica Marathon medal. But I don't know about you. I found that the marathon was wonderful, and it was my reason for going there. But in the end, I got more from the trip itself, seeing all the amazing scenery, the wildlife, and just being on a boat with 100 runners was fantastic. Made some really enduring friendships from that.
It sure does. And guys, in case you wonder, Tracy is from New Zealand. That's why she has this really cute accent.
Originally from the UK, but yeah, I've been in New Zealand almost 20 years, and I think I might have picked up a bit of the local accent.
So, as we met, you didn't know that you had breast cancer because we ran the marathon about 2017, and then
that's right.
In 2019, you were diagnosed with breast cancer. How did you find out you had cancer?
I just went for a routine mammogram. My sister had breast cancer. She was diagnosed 4 years ago. And so I was sort of pretty vigilant about making sure that I went for my mammograms every year. And I wasn't expecting anything to come up because we've had nobody else in our family who'd had breast cancer. So, yeah, I went in at 8:30 for my routine mammogram, and they called me in straight away to say they needed to do another one. So while I was sitting in the waiting room, and in the space of 2 hours, I had 2 mammograms, an ultrasound, a biopsy, and then they got me in front of a breast surgeon who started talking mastectomy. And I was still reeling from the fact that I needed another mammogram. So, yeah, it was really interesting times.
What type of cancer were you diagnosed with? That because they took such drastic measures.
That's right. So it was there are 13 different types of breast cancer, and the one that I had was triple positive. So it was something called HER2 positive and estrogen and progesterone positive. Now, what that means, the HER2 positive is very, very aggressive, and that's why it was so drastic. The good part about it is that both the HER2 and the estrogen and progesterone positive have very targeted therapies. Because in the past they had such bad outcomes for patients, I think a lot of the research has focused on trying to address them. And it means that I'm still having chemotherapy now, and it's very targeted at the HER2. So hopefully it means that I'm going to have a good outcome too.
Yeah. So what are the first steps when they diagnosed you? They did all the mammograms and all the checking out what it is. Then what happened next?
So I had that done on a Thursday. On the Friday, I got a phone call to confirm that, yes, it definitely was cancer. And I then met with a breast surgeon, and she had the biopsy results at that point in time and could confirm that it was the HER2 positive. So she said it wouldn't just be the mastectomy, that I would also need chemotherapy. I'd been hoping that I would get away with just an operation and I'd be off work for a couple of weeks and then back to it. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. Mm-hmm. So I had about 10 days in between being diagnosed and meeting with a breast surgeon. And during that time, I ran so often just to try to clear my head and get my head around it. It didn't sink in. Obviously, I told my family and my friends and colleagues, and I did quite a bit of research to understand what I was going to be going through. And the other thing I had to do, I had about 6 months of root canal work on one of my teeth. And the doctor said to me that I needed to go to the dentist and get that sorted, because when you're undergoing chemotherapy, all healing stops. And unfortunately, so I went to the dentist and they had to extract my tooth, which was not ideal. So I had that done the day before my surgery.
Oh my God. I mean, not only that, but you have tooth. Oh my goodness. I had no idea about that.
I think there's a lot of things about going through chemo and cancer that is a real surprise when you're going through it, because people don't talk about it. So that's one of the reasons I've been quite open about my journey.
And that's when as friends from our Antarctica trip, and we're staying in touch through Facebook, and you were so open in our group on Facebook to share your story, to share your journey, that I finally, when I saw the interview that was done by a New Zealand magazine, I took the guts to ask you, because I was like, she's doing an interview, she's sharing it on Facebook in our group. Maybe she wants to share all her knowledge with my group on the podcast as well, because I'm working with cancer survivors here in Maryland, and I'm a Pilates certified cancer exercise specialist. And I've learned so much about chemotherapy, about treatments, about surgeries, about mastectomies and so forth through the people that I am working with. I've learned along their side about the side effects of the medication that they're taking, that always people seem to find me to help them get healthier and get more functional through exercise. And when I saw your story that you ran through chemotherapy and you did all the things we're going to talk about it, I also said it is a great opportunity for women, whether they're touched by breast cancer themselves or somebody in their immediate life. If you're not affected by it, you really don't know that much, and it's not that much talked about. What happens when, and what do I do when? Who do I talk to? And I think the more we women know, and anybody listening to this podcast, the more we share this information, the more we're educated and know what to expect when cancer, in this case, breast cancer, hits.
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of fear around cancer because of the unknown. And unfortunately, so many of us are touched by it or know people who've touched by it. Before I got diagnosed, it's not just my sister, two very good friends of mine also have been through breast cancer. So over the last 4 years, I've been sort of helping and trying to support 3 people with breast cancer. And when it came to my own journey, I was surprised that there were still new things that I hadn't come across. And I realized that we all have a very different experience. There are some common things. And sharing information can be helpful. But I think in the end, it can be quite a lonely journey. And that's something that I hadn't really appreciated.
Lonely as far as the information you have or the people around you?
I think even if you're surrounded by people around you, they don't really understand what you're going through. And it's, you know, sometimes you don't want to tell people if you're feeling really bad because they're already so worried about you. You don't want to worry them even more. Mm-hmm. And so you end up keeping a lot inside.
I can understand that. So what are the side effects of chemo?
So the side effects that I went through were quite far-ranging. So at the typical ones that you see when you watch the movies, like my hair fell out, I was tired, and I had this thing called chemo brain, which I'm actually still suffering from now. It's like a fog that comes over your mind. And so it's difficult to think straight. It's difficult to remember things. It's difficult to focus and concentrate. And that's been really hard in terms of my job because I have to use my cognitive ability a lot in my job. And it's just been very challenging. In addition to those typical ones, you're given a lot of medication to make sure that you're not sick as in actually throwing up, but you still get a lot of nausea. And it's like if you've ever had travel sickness, it's that sort of nausea. The medication that you're given to stop the nausea has lots of side effects. And I ended up with insomnia and drowsiness, with diarrhea and constipation. It's all ends of the spectrum. I lost taste for all things, so nothing tasted good. And so as a result, I lost a lot of weight because it was hard to keep eating when food just didn't taste good and when I felt nauseous. One of the things that I found really helpful for that was sparkling water. So I had litres and litres of sparkling water through chemo because it just helped with the taste. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of pain. Some of the drugs that they gave me to try to bring my blood cell count up meant that I had a lot of lower back pain. There was one point in time where we were actually having some building work done and my partner was at work. And I got the most excruciating back pain and I was lying on the floor in the bedroom and then suddenly my nose started bleeding. There's nosebleeds is another part of it. I got some nosebleeds every day. And it was gushing. I was literally blood everywhere. So I had to get the builders to call my husband. He came home and they got me a towel. I'd literally, by the time he got home, I'd soaked through the towel and I was lying on the floor and I couldn't move. It was just, that was probably my low point.
Oh my goodness. I had no idea. This is all of these side effects. That is an eye-opening story that you're sharing. And I can only imagine how that must feel from the stories that I was told and I have heard. But that describes that loneliness as well, because there's no one that can help you.
No. And the other two lasting legacies that I got, one was blurred vision, and that finally went away in December. So I had the chemotherapy from May through to August. And in December, I finally got my vision back. And I've got permanent hearing loss in both ears. And so I'm just waiting to be fitted with hearing aids now.
Through that time, did you at any point keep working or did you just say, okay, I'm done?
No, so for the first couple of weeks after I was diagnosed, I kept working. And then after my first surgery at the end of March, I worked for maybe a week, and I realized that I just couldn't do it. I couldn't concentrate, and I was really tired. And then as soon as chemo started, physically I couldn't do it, but also when you're going through something like this, there are so many medical appointments. Some weeks I'd be spending 8-10 hours at the doctor's, and then that would be several different trips, so there'd be travel time on top of it all. And literally there almost wasn't time to work. So I took 5 months off, and I went back to work at the end of August part-time. And I'm still part-time now. I'm hoping that at some point in the next 2 or 3 months, I'll be able to go back to full-time.
Now, are there any clinics in Auckland that are specializing in cancer or breast cancer patients?
Yes. So do you mean medical clinics?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, Auckland is a relatively large city in New Zealand, so we're fortunate that we've got a few different clinics. And the one I went to was a cancer centre that specialises in all types of cancer.
Yeah, because when we went to New Zealand about 3 years ago, I think, or 4 years or 5 years ago, we landed in Auckland, and then we went, I don't know where we drove, but like an hour outside somewhere by the beach to start our trip through the country. It's a beautiful country, I have to say. We saw the north part and the south part.
Oh, yeah. I started my life in New Zealand in the south part, and it is very beautiful down there. But I like Auckland as a city because there's a lot more going on up here.
Now, through your whole process, you worked with a woman named Megan Schmidt. She's an oncology physiotherapist, and tell us about the relationship and how she helped you in her treatment.
So when I had the first mastectomy, so I had one mastectomy in March and I had the other side removed in December. So when I had the first one in March, the breast surgeon actually referred me to Megan. She said she'd worked with a number of her other patients, and she knew that I was very keen to get back to exercise as soon as possible, but I needed some physiotherapy to help me with that. As well as having my breast removed, they also removed the lymph nodes from under my arm, and that made the whole area very tight. And even just with running, you still want to have a little bit of arm movement. So the first sessions that I had with Megan were all about trying to relieve that tightness, massaging the scar and massaging under my arm and relieving that. And then I expressed to her that I was going to be going through chemo and I wanted to keep exercising. And she was the one who told me that doing strength workouts straight after chemo is actually supposed to be really good for you. It's supposed to help all the chemicals move around your body, but you've got to literally do it straight away. So she devised a strength training program for me where I was doing some weightlifting and some exercises just using my own body weight. And after each chemo session, as soon as I'd get home, one of my friends who was taking me home would help me go through the strength training session, and I would do it literally within 30 minutes of having been in the chemo chair.
Interesting, because there is the danger of lymphedema
there is. So I in my good side, I was using like a 3 kilogram weight, but in the bad side, it was only 1 kilo. So it was a very, very light weight, but it was still, I think it actually helped me not get lymphedema.
Interesting, because the clients I work with, so I said earlier, that they don't know, they're tight, they may have had a mastectomy and they have all the lymph nodes removed and no movement and range of movement and pain in the side that's affected. And their biggest fear is also lymphedema, because that's what I think everybody reads up on. I can't lift any weights. And I was like, no, it will make you really light weights, really light, like you described. It makes such a big difference in the flexibility and in the strength of the affected side. Now, with you had both breasts removed, so it was a double whammy.
I know. So I had one removed in March and one in December.
Okay, but we need to know that you didn't stop running before the surgery. So 2 weeks before the surgery, I heard you ran your last race.
That's right. Yeah, I had a 10-kilometer race that I did 2 weeks before surgery. And then pretty much straight after surgery, the day after surgery, I was walking. So I did a 15-minute walk, and I gradually built up from that. And 2 weeks after surgery, I did a 5-kilometer race, and it took me an hour because I walked it, but it felt really good just to be on the circuit again. I'd actually been training to do Prague Marathon, and Prague Marathon was 5 weeks after my surgery. And I had harbored hopes that I would still be able to do the marathon. Well, after doing that 5-kilometer race, I realized that a marathon just wasn't going to happen. But my partner and I still went, and he ran the marathon, and I did the first 3 kilometers with him, just so that I could do the start of it through the beautiful old town. And then I ducked out and he finished.
Yeah, I saw pictures of that. I was like, oh my God, there you are supporting him. Oh my So you are definitely determined, Tracy. That's unbelievable. But tell me a little bit more. What type of exercises did you do, or that Megan said you should do during your treatments?
Okay, the first key one was walking every day. And my running friends almost had a rota. Every single day, somebody would turn up and go for a walk with me. And even if I could only walk for 15 minutes, it was really good having somebody else going out with me. It gave me confidence. And generally, so in a 3-weekly cycle of chemo, the first couple of weeks are much harder than the third week. So I would be walking maybe 15, 20 minutes for the first couple of weeks a day. And then in the third week, be up to walking maybe an hour a day. As well as the walking, every other day I did a strength session, which lasted about half an hour. And it was lifting weights, doing lunges, squats, sit-ups, all with the weights. And as I say, 1 kilo in one hand and 3 kilos in the other. And that was really good for keeping my flexibility. And I had something called cording. I don't know if any of you other ladies you've come across have had it. It's where the muscles from your between your chest and your arm actually form almost like thick cords. It really affects the range of movement. And so doing those exercises and the stretching has helped a lot with the cording.
Yeah, one of my current clients has had cording, and she's been cancer-free now for 5 years, and she still needs treatment to keep that cording loose and break down the scar tissue. And that has helped her a lot to get specifically massages from a specific person specializing in that for her affected side. But
yeah, and I've been back to Megan to sort out, the side that was done almost a year ago now. She still does a bit of work on that side because the cording, I thought it would be something that would go in a few weeks, but I'm learning now that actually some of these things are going to be with me for years.
Yep. And keeping the range of movement in those affected areas in the arm is super important, because it feels it ends up almost being like a frozen shoulder that you can't move at all if it's not being treated.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're doing an awesome job with Megan. And from what I read too, Megan, I'm not a physiotherapist, but Megan said that your exercise routine helped you tolerate the chemo more, boost your immune system, and helped you reduce the chance of the tumor returning by up to 40%.
Yeah, I was amazed at those figures, but I did a bit of extra research myself, and there are quite a few studies to support it. So it made me realize that exercise isn't just important for your mind, because I think we all know it's great for your mental health, but the fact that it could reduce the chance of the tumor coming back was another really important motivator for me.
Yeah. And these are good facts to know, because research continues, and the more we learn and the more we dig around, and we will find hopefully better treatments going forward for us women.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping for. 20 years ago, if I'd had the HER2 positive cancer, my outcome would have been really very, very different to where I'm at now. And I might not be sitting here talking to you. But because of all the research has been really focused, we've now got treatments for these types of cancers.
Yeah. Now, how did exercise make you feel during this whole process?
Oh, look, sometimes it made me feel tired and sore. But I'd say for the most part, it actually energized me. It feels counterintuitive, but even now, if I go for a 2-hour run, I come back and I'm buzzing and my mind feels sharp. And so I'm able to tackle really hard problems. If I work for 3 hours, I'm absolutely exhausted and I come home and I need a nap. So yeah, I'm not quite sure how the physiology of that works. Must be the dopamine or the hormones that it's releasing in me. But I definitely find it energizes me and it's really good for my mental health. It helps me cope with things and it helps me feel normal.
Now, through all this, who was your support system and how important was it for you to have these people around you other than Megan?
Yeah, so Megan was great. My oncologist was really great as well. And she was always available to me. So if I had symptoms suddenly come up at 10 o'clock at night, I could text her and I'd get an answer and some advice on what to do. My partner, Paul, has been absolutely amazing. Anytime that I've needed him, he's been there for me, as have my family and my friends. And I mentioned my running friends. Wow. They kept me going out there and running. My work colleagues, one of my work colleagues in particular, who is our chef at work, who does meals for staff and clients at work, she kept our freezer full the whole way through chemo. So there were always meals for Paul to eat. And a lot of the time we were so consumed with my treatment that there wasn't energy to do things like sort of trying to cook good, nutritious food. So yeah, all of those things were amazing.
That is awesome. It is so important to have that support system around you to help you do things for you, or like the meals is it's such a simple thing to do for somebody. But when you're in the situation like you were, it's like, I'm not cooking anything. I don't taste anything. So why would I cook anything? So this is super awesome.
Yeah. It was good. And I think if you know people who are going through cancer treatment, that's often you feel helpless and you think, what can I do to help? Or making some nutritious meals and putting them in a container that can just be stuck in the freezer is actually something really concrete that you can do.
These are good tips. Now, Tracy, you officially have been declared cancer-free.
Unfortunately, not yet. So I had a brain scan a couple of weeks ago that didn't show anything, so that was good. But over here, I don't know whether it's the same in the States, we have an approach that's symptoms-based. So at the end of my treatment, I won't be getting a scan that then says, okay, there's no evidence of cancer. And the reason they do that is if they find cancer at a very early stage, they're forced to treat it, and the treatments have really bad side effects. And the outcome as to whether they find it now or whether we wait until I show symptoms and it gets treated in a year or two's time is the same. So instead, they take a symptom-based approach. And if I have pain or I find lumps or anything like that, I can go straight to the doctor and they'll check it out. Mm-hmm. But if I don't find anything, then I just hum along nicely and go for my regular checkups.
No, it's not like this, as far as I know, here in the States. It's like the 5-year mark and doing another scan, and that's how they decide what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm hoping that I don't have any cancer cells in me, but the whole reason that I'm still going through treatment now is just in case there are any little rogue cells around, to try to get those. And I'm taking a drug called tamoxifen, which is a hormone treatment, and I'm going to be on that for the next 5 years. And again, they're all sort of insurance policies just to try to avoid it coming back.
Yeah. Have you thought of any alternative medicine treatments in your situation?
Yeah, so for some of the side effects that I get a lot of hot flushes after the chemo, and I've looked at changing my diet and thought about acupuncture for that. Yeah. I think diet is actually a really important one, and I've been trying to cut sugar out of my diet. It's really hard as a chocoholic, but and
I did not know that about you.
Yeah, I eat chocolate every day, and I managed 2 weeks sugar free at the beginning of February, but I've fallen off the wagon again already. Oh. But I've been watching quite a few TV programs recently about how bad sugar is for you and for cancer, and moving towards a plant-based diet. And I sort of feel everything in moderation, but yeah, I am trying to move towards that.
Yeah. This is a good approach coming from my end too, as a nutrition coach, is avoiding or cutting out most of the cancer causing, like sugar, and upping more plant-based diet, less animal proteins and things like that. Now, how long will you go through your treatments, Tracy?
So I've got the Herceptin treatment that I have, which is every 3 weeks. It's an infusion like chemo, but it's like a very light version of chemo. That's every 3 weeks until the beginning of May. And then after that, hopefully it's just the tamoxifen, which is a tablet that I take every day.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what advice would you give other women that experience breast cancer or are diagnosed with breast cancer?
I think the first thing to say is I'd be very cautious about giving advice, because you're amazed when you're diagnosed with cancer and you start to tell people, you're bombarded with advice. Everyone has got an opinion on what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing, what you should be eating, what you shouldn't be eating, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. But in general, I think it's worth appreciating that everyone is different, that we all have different ways of dealing with it. So if when you're diagnosed, you choose not to tell anyone or just to tell a couple of people, that's fine. It's your choice what to do. I chose to be open about it, partly because with my job, I have lots of clients and they were all going to be handed over to other directors to look after. And I thought, I can't actually go through this without telling them why. I think one of the other things is, by telling lots of people, it's meant that I've had a good support network. So that's been really helpful. When you're first diagnosed, you feel like you're on a conveyor belt. In theory, you're given lots of choices to make, but it's like with the mastectomy, I chose not to have reconstruction and just to stay flat. But in theory, you have the choice between reconstruction, different types of reconstruction, or staying flat. And I think it's good to be aware that there are those choices. Some people don't like to do research because they don't necessarily want to know what all the possible outcomes are. And that's a valid response. But it is worth understanding all the different choices that are put in front of you. Because I think prior to going through it myself, I always thought you just had to have reconstruction, and I didn't realize that just staying flat was an option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, reconstruction has its own slew of problems associated with it.
Absolutely. I think it's to find a surgeon and an oncologist who will really have a dialogue with you rather than just telling you what to do, and explain why they're recommending the treatments that they do, and listen to you. That's really good. I mean, I like to base my decisions on lots of facts, and so I did a lot of research and I questioned some of the decisions that were being made. And so it was really comforting for me to know that my oncologist was taking on board my feedback. And in a couple of occasions, we sort of adjusted my treatment as a result.
I love that, because not just being talked to and told to is key. And
yeah.
And even though the information is overwhelming at times, and when I dove into that whole breast cancer niche with Pilates, there was so much that I didn't know and had learned through the course, but it's like the tamoxifen. This is like the going treatment for breast cancer survivors and the side effects of this and all that kind of stuff. But not just being told, oh, here, I fixed you, you're done now. But you're like, okay, so I don't have cancer, but what now? Do I want a new breast? Do I need more treatments? What about everything else that we've talked about so far? It's like somebody there to help you explain this to you. And what I think is important too, like you just said, is someone that's on your side.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was one other phenomenon that really took me by surprise that I think, it's not necessarily advice for other women, but it's a little bit of a heads up. And initially I thought it was just something weird with my circle of friends, but I've done a bit of research and apparently it is a thing. So when you get diagnosed with cancer and you start to tell people, you'd be amazed, but some people feel the need to tell you about someone in their life who's died from breast cancer. And the first couple of times it happened, I thought, gosh, why are they telling me this? This is not making me feel any better. But it has happened so often now. And I understand that people want to try to feel a connection with you. And even if the only thing that they know is actually a bad story, they feel the need to tell it. So now when someone starts telling me about their aunt or uncle or friend who had cancer, I cut them off and I say, does this have a good ending? Because if it doesn't, I really don't want to hear it.
Oh, I'm so proud of you.
And I also realized, so when I did Chicago Marathon in October, I put a few pink ribbons on me and things because I thought, oh, look, that might be really motivational if runners are coming up behind and they might say, good on you. What I didn't realize was how many people are running in memoriam of someone. And I had so many runners come up next to me and say, oh, I'm running for my sister that died, or I'm running for my mother that died. And after a little while, I was running along and I was thinking, is anyone running for someone still alive?
Oh my goodness. I didn't think about that either. The race for cure is like this. Everybody runs in memory of somebody.
Yeah, which is fine, and they're all valid choices. But it's good to really think about that and think, okay, how is this going to make me feel?
Oh, that's such good advice, and I could only agree. It's like everybody has a story, and it's not always a good ending. No, but I'm glad you brought up Chicago Marathon because the listeners need to know that this Tracy chick from New Zealand actually ran the Chicago Marathon right after her chemotherapy.
That's right. I had entered for it long before I was diagnosed, and I've been working towards doing the 6 majors. So there's 6 marathons, and if you do them all, then you get this fancy big medal for all 6 at the end of it. And Chicago was number 4. So I thought I'm still going to go, and I thought even if I end up walking it, I'll still should be able to do it in the time. And in actual fact, I did end up walking a lot. I ended up sitting by the road and crying for bits of it. And every time I did that, people would come along and encourage me to keep going. And then about 5 kilometers from the end, I was actually on the verge of pulling out. And I was just in pain. I was tired, and I just didn't think I had it in me to finish. And this wonderful guy called Andy from Wales came along, and he doubled back and he reached out a hand, helped me up, and he stuck with me to the finish, and he got me through and across that finish line. Very, very grateful to him.
Andy from Wales, here's a shout out to you wherever you are now.
Thank you.
But this is what I think running, to me, part of it, running and racing and triathlons is not any different. And we're not the elite runners, the front of the pack. We're more to the middle and the end of the pack. And when you're to the middle and the end of the pack, people are much more graceful and helpful and cheerful, and they don't worry about cutting time, that they are 1 minute faster than they've been the year before, or that they're placing. People generally just want to finish that race and stay within that time goal that was set for that race. And everybody becomes so helpful and cheerful. And cheers each other on. So I am so excited that you experienced that in Chicago.
Oh, very much. And the support in Chicago, oh my gosh, every single street was just lined with people. And so that was wonderful too. And they were so encouraging.
Nice. Now, I heard that you're going to have some more races planned coming up, and one that's not too far away from where I am.
Yeah, so I race pretty much every couple of weeks. I've got lots of 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons. And my next big race is going to be Boston Marathon in April. So hopefully Tokyo Marathon has just been cancelled. So I'm hoping that Boston Marathon goes ahead, because that'll be star number 5 for me. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to going to Boston.
Would Tokyo be number 6?
Yes. Yeah. So Tokyo, I'm hoping to do Tokyo next year. Now, with the fact that it's just been cancelled for this year, there will be a lot more people trying to do it next year. But fingers crossed I'll get in.
Yeah. Now, I ran Boston in 2008. Was my first and only Boston. As I set goals and I go, I'm going to run a marathon. So I said, okay, I run a marathon. I'm going to go run Boston. Okay, I ran Boston. Boston was a blast. When you run Boston and you have, I can't think of the hill right now.
Heartbreak Hill.
It's, by the time you get there, Tracy, it feels like nothing. You're like, what are they all talking about? This was not as difficult. And you have to get a kiss from the girls at the college.
Oh, wonderful. Well, it's the college, isn't it? Yeah, I've been reading up about it. I'm very excited to be doing it. And I love hills. I don't really enjoy the flat marathons. I love hilly ones. So yeah, I think it'll be a good one for me.
That's a good, a lot of our local runners go as a group every year to Boston. And one of my good friends is going to be there. I'm going to tell her to look for you. And once I have your race number, because you'll be waiting out in whatever that town is called, where the buses take you. And you will be all waiting there. So I'll try to connect the 2 race numbers so that I can see you both racing Boston.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Now, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to share about today's topic?
No, I think, look, we've covered pretty much everything. And I think probably one of the biggest things is just when you first get diagnosed, it can be really overwhelming. And sometimes that can last quite a while. I would say it's probably really only the last 4 or 5 months that it's sunk in. One of the things that helped me was going to see a counsellor and talking to someone who I didn't know, who I could be completely open with, because you might be able to talk to your partner and your friends, but you might not want to share some fears and concerns with them because it's going to give them an extra worry. And talking to someone who's completely neutral can be helpful. So, yeah, that's probably the only thing that we haven't really covered, but I think we've covered everything else pretty thoroughly.
I know. Now, Tracy, is there a way that people connect with you or reach out to you if they have more questions about what we've talked about today?
Oh, absolutely. I'm happy for people to email me. So my email address is hickmants@yahoo.com. That's hickmants@yahoo.com. So more than welcome to email me, and I will try to help them if I can.
That's awesome. So it was so nice to reconnect with you after such a long time and only over Facebook and the other channels to stay in touch. But thank you so much for being here, sharing your story and all your advice. Just wish you nothing but the best, good health and good races.
Thank you, Heike. Hopefully we'll be running a race together again one day.
That will be so awesome.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. So what do you think? Wasn't this an incredible story of courage, dedication, strength, and hope? I love that I was able to share Tracy's story with you, and I hope that you share her story with others that may benefit from her knowledge and her story, and that you reach out to her with any questions you may have. Her email is in the show notes, so it's easy for you to get a hold of her. And please let me know how you enjoyed this episode and how helpful it was to you by reaching out to me on Instagram at Heike Yates and the Pursue Your Spark podcast, and let me know what you learned, how I helped, or how Tracy's story helped you. And please share this episode with others that may benefit from all this knowledge. And with that, my friends, I'm out of here. Have a most awesome day, and I'll talk to you next time. Ciao.